Yes guys, welcome back to another video. Welcome to the George Benson Football Channel. It is Monday morning. It is going to be another crazy week of being a Chelsea fan. Last week was the deadline for bids to be submitted. There's a bit of confusion about that right now, not just from the world, but from me also, because we still hear rumours about bids being made. We still see journalism regarding people that have just placed a bid, but it was like the deadline was Friday. So I don't know about you lot, but when we keep seeing news develop and we don't hear anything official, there's no statements, there's no confirmations that there's been this number of bids, that number of bids, it does make me a little bit confused, which as a result of confusion kind of spikes that element of angst a little bit amongst the brain, thinking, well, what's going on here? We keep hearing more and more stories, but as Chelsea fans, we require clarity and we don't have it at this moment in time. In today's video, I want to talk about this. I want to talk about John Terry's bid with Claire Rafferty of 250 million for a 10% share of Chelsea Football Club. I want to talk about the good, the bad. With that one, I want to discuss Rudiger, and I also want to discuss Tammy Abraham, who, once again, for Roma last night was sensational. There are questions currently being asked about, did Chelsea do the right thing in selling Tammy Abraham? You asked people when we sold him, a lot would have said yes. Ask people now, a lot think that we are a load of stupid idiots at Chelsea Football Club who spend 100 million on Lukaku and then sell Tammy Abraham, who is doing just what Lukaku did in Serie A. Want to talk about that too, but before we get into any of this, please subscribe to GBFC, hit the like button if you are ready for daily updates this week about the Chelsea Takeover, all other things Chelsea. There's no football now until April the 2nd, which is going to blow some of our minds, because I'm sure now that there's no games to look forward to, us as Chelsea fans, we will be clouded and shrouded with uncertainty for the next 2 weeks. It's going to be good, so buckle yourself in on GBFC. I say it's going to be good because you guys are going to get videos. It's not so good in the sense of this lack of clarity that we have as fans right now is bugging me. I don't know if it's just me. I've been trying to stay away from Twitter a little bit over the weekend. I still tweeted stuff during and after the game, especially after the draw against Real Madrid. But when it comes to a lot of the fuss that's going on, to put it as nicely as I can really, there's a big fuss right now from fans towards journalists. Journalists are just doing their jobs. They're simply asking the right questions to get the right answers to try and provide the most relevant information possible. Matt Law came under a bit of scrutiny. Nizar Kinsella, he also came under a bit of scrutiny. Two journalists who I often reference here on my GBFC videos. The issue is, because there is no longer really a say within the club, because it's at the hands of the government and the Rain Group to make the decision, even those like Petr Cech, Marina within Chelsea Football Club, who will absolutely be putting in as much information as possible to try and influence the decision of both the UK government and Rain Group to make the best decision for Chelsea, even though this will certainly be happening behind the scenes, there isn't going to be any kind of public announcement. There isn't going to be any news dropping directly until genuine decisions have been made regarding the future of Chelsea Football Club. So it's reported that there's been around 27 official bids. Quite a lot of those will fall short of the valuation, and then things will start to narrow down and become slightly more based around, right, what is the project? What can these guys bring to the table? Is this going to be something that the Premier League also, when they go through their due diligence, decides this person is good enough to own Chelsea Football Club? We trust this team, this consortium, this party, whatever it may be. The process is obviously aiming to be as fast as possible, but it's no surprise to me whatsoever that even on a Monday morning after a weekend where Chelsea still played a match, won a match, we still sit here thinking, well, why are we still hearing news about bid with this, bid with that? Because quite frankly, I don't think there is anybody other than those directly in the know who have the full list of submitted bids, how much it was worth, tick, cross, move on. There's only a select handful of people in the world right now who have that information, and a lot of the journalists are still digging to try and gain access to as much of that as humanly possible. But before we go and talk a little bit later about the John Terry story, I first of all want to give the update regarding Toni Rudiger. What we understand about Rudiger now was that until all of this happened regarding the sanctions that immediately affected Chelsea Football Club, Rudiger was close to agreeing a new deal. Now, this is news that has been heavily reported, so when I sit here and talk about it, I'm confident that it was true, which at the moment there is a bit of a mind-boggling thing going on in my head where I'm like, how much is truth, how much is just speculation, and how much is just plain and simply false? Rudiger was ready to sign. All of this happened with Chelsea. He couldn't sign. Physically, it would have been impossible for Rudiger to sign a new deal. However, the fact that even though we continue to hear Juventus reports, which, I'll be honest with you, obviously if Rudiger decides he wants to go to Turin, beautiful place, lovely wine, Italy's a wonderful, wonderful environment with a very rich history in their football league. However, having seen Juventus get dismantled by Villarreal and being a European champion himself, Toni Rudiger, mate, I wouldn't consider going to Juventus. It is a genuine downgrade on your footballing career. And even though I'm a biased Chelsea fan who thinks you are probably up there in the top 3 best centre-backs in the world, I really don't think it's a good idea. So the fact that Rudiger was going to sign before, if we can get all of this cloud that is over Chelsea right now of uncertainty regarding who's going to be the owner, what the vision is for the future, if this can be sorted as quickly as possible, I'm a firm believer that Toni Rudiger will sign a new Chelsea contract. We can see at the moment, Tuchel as manager, the playing staff, ever since it was announced that Chelsea were being sanctioned, we've won 6 out of 6 games. We have won 12 out of our last 13. It's incredible. So I think right now the playing group with the manager at the head of that are so close and tight that I don't think it's too big of a concern to think that as a result of all of this uncertainty, there will be an exodus of players at Chelsea. I don't think it's something we need to worry about just yet. Moving into Tammy Abraham, who once again was magnificent under Jose Mourinho for Roma. This has led people to question whether or not Chelsea are just straight up foolish to have sold Tammy Abraham to Roma and bought in Romelu Lukaku. There are 2 things at play here that I think are very, very important. Thomas Tuchel didn't favour Tammy Abraham. We've also seen Chelsea's best ever managers from the past, Mourinho. Yeah, okay, it was a bit stupid, but he didn't value De Bruyne. He didn't really value Mohamed Salah. Now look what they've gone and done. Because Thomas Tuchel didn't necessarily see Tammy Abraham as part of his plans, and therefore Tammy was happy to move away for the benefit of his footballing career. In this moment, without even considering who we went and bought instead, you could say that everyone's kind of happy with this because Chelsea wouldn't have just wanted to sell Tammy Abraham because we don't like Tammy Abraham and don't want him to be part of the club. Thomas Tuchel had an idea as to what he wanted to do. He thought Lukaku was going to be that guy, so we bought Lukaku. He's still our top scorer in all competitions this season. Yes, it's not gone entirely to plan, but it's also one of those where it's like, well, Tammy Abraham knew that Chelsea wanted to go out and spend big on a striker. You cannot blame him for wanting to therefore go because he values himself, but Chelsea always had that buyback clause within that contract. So people might not have foreshadowed that Tammy Abraham was going to go on to have as great of a season as he has. There are a lot of people who would, and they'll also try and rub it in your face when they say that, but realistically, Tammy Abraham's season at Roma has exceeded the expectations that I'm sure the majority of people in football would have expected. Chelsea have that buyback clause. We can access it in 2023. And I think as long as things continue to go the way they're going regarding it looks as though whoever comes in at Chelsea is going to have some kind of transfer plan, is going to have some kind of plan moving forward that Roman Abramovich and his team will have tried to make as evident as possible in the goodwill of the sale when it comes to how much information they gave. People want Chelsea to continue to be at the top. Whoever the new owner who comes in is, I think it's simply going to be a case of, well, how much are they going to spend? How much can we go ahead and spend on players each summer? And I think it's not going to be the same kind of level we've seen before because Chelsea fundamentally will need a new structure. So with that being said, I think the fact that Chelsea did sell Tammy Abraham, bought in Romelu Lukaku, despite hindsight being something which makes us sit here and say, well, that was a bad move. At the time, considering we've got to back a Champions League winning manager, we did that. We bought in Lukaku. He didn't back Tammy Abraham, and Tammy Abraham as a Chelsea Academy graduate who the club want to do the best that they can with their career, I think it was also right that Tammy Abraham moved. So, with that being said, I cannot believe some of the ludicrous statements that are coming out right now that people use Tammy Abraham's success to continue to slate Lukaku, who's also scored 4 in his last 5 Chelsea starts. So I'm not even going to entertain any more than I have today this notion that it was dreadful business of Chelsea to buy Lukaku and sell Abraham, because I think the core reasons why, when people explain this logic, blows my mind a little bit. But now I want to finish this Chelsea news video today by talking a little bit about the supposed 10% share bid from John Terry and Claire Rafferty for 250 million for Chelsea Football Club. There are good and bad sides to this. The bad side of things, I don't feel qualified enough to talk about. But what I will say regarding people's opinions on John Terry's involvement with NFTs, non-fungible tokens. John Terry joined Twitter November 2021. A lot of people were like, finally, John Terry is here. Chelsea captain, leader, legend is on Twitter. Fantastic. And then John Terry started promoting things with NFTs. This upset some people. There was a big drop in the value of some of the said NFTs that John Terry was promoting. People like to jump on a bandwagon and say, well, this is bad. You're trying to promote something that isn't going to make money. It's shady. The one thing I will say about this is I am not clued up enough personally to give a detailed opinion on what's good or bad regarding NFTs. However, the one thing I do understand, which if you don't understand this yet, you are going to have no choice but to understand it in the future. If you don't want to understand that NFTs, in whichever form in which they evolve in the future, this blockchain technology is going to become a cornerstone of modern day society's development. It is unavoidable. So if you don't like anything to do with NFTs because you don't get it, like me, I don't get it either. But I'm also not going to be as narrow-minded as to think that it's all just a load of nonsense. I make jokes about the whole artwork thing and say like, oh, well, now on Twitter you can use your NFT as your profile photo. I'm not going to do that because I'm George Benson. I'm going to have a picture of George Benson there. Still my account. It's not my Bored Apes account. I don't own a Bored Ape. Wish I did. I could sell it for a lot of money. You know what I'm saying here. That is the bad side of things. The good side of this is that if whoever buys Chelsea is even open to the idea of a John Terry, Claire Rafferty, 250 million, 10% share of the club, I think this could be a brilliant way to kind of soften the blow that could come with this inevitable transitional period that Chelsea Football Club are about to enter. Whoever buys Chelsea next, I firmly believe there will be enough in place already in terms of the handover, the conversations that will need to be had, the due diligence that will go into the decision. As much as I'm nervous still about it, I am a firm believer that it will be within the best interests of the development, progression, and continued success of our club. If I don't believe that at this point, then, well, I'm going to get myself into a very dark headspace. So I'm choosing to believe that. If there is an opportunity to have a John Terry, Claire Rafferty, people who really love and understand the DNA of Chelsea Football Club, I think this is a great thing. I think it would be a brilliant way to make sure that the core values of Chelsea is maintained with whoever it is who takes over and is the majority shareholder of our club. Let me know your thoughts in the comments down below. This is one that splits opinions. The reason I don't try and entertain too much of the bad side is because, quite frankly, I don't understand this NFT space well enough to give a clarified judgment. But what I do know is there isn't many in the world who love John Terry as much as Chelsea. And with the best interests of the club at heart, no matter what we believe is the biggest importance right now, such as how much money can we spend, people that have the core DNA, the core values of Chelsea at the forefront and knowledge within their minds to move us forwards, I'm always going to entertain those kind of ideas. But anyway, I'm going to wrap this one up here. There's going to be loads of news coming out this week about this, loads of speculation. So if you are not yet subscribed to GBFC, make sure you do. Turn on the bell notifications, hit the like button if you enjoyed this one, and I'll see you in the next video. Come on, you Blues.